Park Preservation Board. President at today's meeting are, we have Corporation Counsel Mira Hertzberg,
Rona Jones-Rouser.
Don Radke,
Jeff Romano.
Cynthia Carter.
Nicole Fragnito.
And Kate Auwitter.
like a motion to accept the minutes? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any changes, modifications?
I have a few.
Sure.
Page 2, CA-2318, rugby. Second paragraph, talking about the pool deck. Board recommend instead of a poured concrete pool deck with broom finish or scoring pattern, I think we should say along with a scoring pattern.
Yeah, I think that.
That was the comment to differentiate it.
Right.
So, further down, same page for 350 Montgomery, second block, second paragraph. Last sentence there, stated to install a metal storefront door similar to the door they installed at the former hotel entrance. There was a need for panning to cover the historic opening for the temporary door.
That's right.
So we just
Yeah.
get that captured. I don't know if there's going to be a gap. And so we just want to make sure the historic material isn't damaged. And then just in discussion, 801 West Fayette, halfway down the paragraph, the board reviewed their concept drawings, including a second-story addition that will function as a double-loaded corridor or to be a single.
Single, yeah. Oh, yep.
Oh, I missed it. Okay.
And necessary in order to orientate the apartments in such a way that their wooden roof trusses on the second floor can remain exposed in the apartments. It's more along the lines of the unique structural design, because the trusses do the ceiling and the second floor, so the first floor is a clear span.
Right.
So I think it's more kudos to the original engineering.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Other comments or changes? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as modified?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
Nicole.
I'm abstaining.
You should- Welcome, Nicole. She's our newest member. And we do have some new technology here, and this is the first meeting under the new city rezone classification, so our procedures have changed a little bit, nothing dramatic. The first order of business is going to be public hearings. The board will now conduct public hearings on today's agenda. First, the applicant or the applicant's representative will be invited to describe the proposed scope of work and to present any material or documentation regarding the proposal to the board. Next, persons wishing to speak in favor of the proposal will be given the opportunity to address the board. Then, persons who wish to speak in opposition will be allowed to address the board. Finally, the applicant or representative will be given the opportunity to make closing comments to the board. Following each public hearing, the board may vote to approve, approve with conditions, or deny the application just heard. The board may also decide to hold its decision until the next public hearing. If the hearing is closed, no additional information will be allowed into the record except for information that the board may request. That information will be available for public review with board staff. Staff will now introduce the first application.
Morning. So the first application is CA-2321, which is a certificate of appropriateness for site work at 100 Windsor Place, which is located in the Berkeley Park Preservation District. The proposed work includes new fencing, replacing and rebuilding deteriorated replacing deteriorated features, primarily on the north and west side of the house. Major existing features include an in-ground pool, patio, and pond. This project was subject to a stop work order as the work had begun prior to coming before the board. The board is also, and I have you were provided with yesterday, as well as this morning, a hard copy of comments from Jim and Susan Swanson, who reside at 303 Berkeley Drive, next door neighbor, regarding the project. So,
Good morning.
Morning, could you please give us your name and address for the record?
William Pitcher of Pitcher Architect, 124 Fiegel Avenue, Syracuse, New York, representing the applicants. We have two different things that we are considering this morning. One is the things that are in the front yard that are visible from the street, and the other changes are things that are not visible from the street. So I'll go over the first group of things, the front yard. If we look at drawing L5 in your packet, basically the items being suggested here are on the lower right-hand corner, replacing existing deteriorated concrete curbs with new granite curbs from the entrance wall to the existing street. That's item X on your drawings. Item W is to repair the pointing and minor deficiencies on the two entrance walls. Going to the left, item Y is to retop all of the existing asphalt driveway with new asphalt. And item I is basically mulch beds being added to the yard in areas where plants won't grow because of the tree cover, and also for visual separations. When we go to the top of the drawing, you can see that item E is the deer fencing, and this is going to be a very fine mesh tall fence to keep the deer out. And in front of it is going to be a low stone wall R. And basically, the deer fence is going to encircle the entire backyard. And if we look in the upper right-hand corner, item K, that's some additional existing bluestone, which was taken up during water line repairs, and that's being replaced with new brownstone. And then if we look at item K, this is new bluestone pathway going down to the pool area. And it's a stepped walkway, so we have flat bluestone and then we have granite steps as we go down. So that's basically everything that's visible from the street. I think those are the things that are important. Now, if we go back to page L2, we'll be at the back of the house. L2 and L3 is where I'll be talking. Basically, there is a 1920s brick wall terrace, which was covered over with concrete block retaining, and they propose on item A to remove the concrete block and to restore or rebuild the brick wall behind it to return it to its original condition. The same thing on item C on the landing at the terrace. That's concrete block pavers that were put in at some later date. They're talking about putting in, again, the bluestone pavement in that area and reconstructing the steps with the granite. And also on the upper terrace, it's basically overgrown weeds. So we're talking about taking out the weeds and putting back turf grass on the terrace level. There's a small planting bed between the steps, and that would be rebuilt. Now, you can see the property line is the dark line furthest out. The second line in is the deer fencing. And the deer fencing at this point is downhill from the actual lawn area. And this entire north side of the property is totally obscured by mature trees. From the terrace street down below, you can't see up to the yard. You can see the edge of the yard, but you can't see anything in the yard. The trees are also very dense, which means that there's absolutely no growth on a very steep slope. So part of this is to remove and thin the canopy near the edge of the trees so that we can get some sunlight in and get some plants in there. And we think probably crown vetch or vinca probably will do well on this side, but we'll talk to the arborist about which plant materials to put on that. The other item, item Y, this is the juncture of Terrace and Windsor. There's brush in the city's right-of-way that creates a blind curve, and the applicants are asking the city to cut down the brush so that it's basically going to be, there's basically vinca in that area, so it'd be a low area. It's just, there's nothing particularly interesting about the brush. If we look at L4, we're now moving around the property to the back area where the pool is. Several things are going on here. Most of the paving in this area is, again, later concrete block paving. It's being removed. The bluestone is being put in. There is an existing fence around the pool. It's a black iron fence that they're proposing to replace with a similar fence. The biggest issue is in the lower left corner, K and L. Presently, that patio area is above the threshold of the basement door and tends to flood. So the proposal here is to remove about 12 inches of dirt and repave it in new bluestone. So that's basically all new bluestone, and the apron around the pool is concrete. So we're also doing bluestone between the concrete and the low retaining wall there. On the other side of the pool fence, the brown thing is a mulch area, and that's pretty much what's going on in the pool area. Now, the koi pond was existing. He's basically put a new liner into the existing pond, cleaned it out, but lifted all of the existing paving materials and set them aside. They will be reinstalled around the koi pond. And there is a waterfall feature also that goes into the koi pond that will be built out of that stone. Between the koi pond and the pathway down to the pool, we have some more granite steps. The hot tub is existing, it will remain. The top of the koi pond, the lowest part of the drawing, we have about a 5 or 6 foot difference in elevation from the front yard to the rear yard. The rear yard is lower all the way around. And items S, he's talking about putting in raised garden beds in the lawn area. So we have basically the dark line around is the deer fence again, and some planting in front of the deer fence to obscure it. If we go to drawing L3, you can just barely see in the lower right-hand corner, the patio is being extended, and we're putting in a gazebo for an outdoor kitchen. So that's a new addition of the gazebo structure. Basically, it'll be cypress wood and allowed to weather naturally. It'll be 4 posts and a wood cedar shingle roof. I think that is pretty much everything that they're proposing to do. If you have any questions.
Very extensive scope of work here.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's a fabulous property.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's just exciting that the owners are taking the interest they're doing for a property that has not been maintained for a while. It is a large, large scope of work. A couple of comments that I'd have right in the beginning is you talk about deer fencing, you talk about the gazebo and some other things. I think we need to see further samples, designs, so we know specifically what we're talking about. So my suggestion is that we keep the public hearing open, and I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but I think maybe a site visit might be a good idea. Just so, I'm familiar with the property, but I don't know if other board members are, and it's huge.
I certainly drove around to try to take a look at it, but
Any other comments at this point? So, Kate, can you set up site visit? And
I was going to say, I think that, Mira, since it is a public hearing, are you still going to public comment to find out?
Yeah,
what
oh,
the
yeah,
public-
sure,
Okay,
sure,
yeah,
sure,
okay,
yeah,
yes, yep, I can set up a site visit, yep.
so staff will be in touch, and we'll try to set up something. In the meantime, to continue with the public hearing, is there anybody here who would like to speak in favor of the project? Please come to the podium and give us your... Pardon? Okay, I'm speaking, anybody want to speak in favor of the project?
Can I just make a couple comments?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so materially, I think we've got historically appropriate materials being spec'd, the bluestone. You did say brownstone, but I think you did mean bluestone.
Bluestone.
So we have granite, excuse me, granite treads and a bluestone patio, all historically sympathetic that would have been there, dated to the 1920 construction of the property. I'd like to see a little more information about the retaining walls on the western plaza with the lawn area. It's been since covered over, you said, with concrete block. I'd like to see some detail about its current condition or current construction and how it's going to be rebuilt. Lowering the grade, I understand that. I'm just curious as to what it does to the grading against the historic alignment of the pathway that leads from that kitchen door by the driveway service area down to the pool area. I'd like to see, these plans are great, but we just need a little more detail, understand what's going on. And as Don mentioned, the new gazebo structure, I'd like just to see some scale, a scale drawing of that, materials. The pool is existing and it's getting no work done to it, or?
The retaining wall structure of the koi pond is existing, so basically a new liner is being put into it.
Right, but the pool.
The pool.
The pool,
Oh, the swimming pool
Yeah,
is
sorry.
unchanged.
unchanged, okay, so that remains as is, with just a new bluestone surround, thank you. All right. Other than that, it's a large property. We had the opportunity to view it last year for some work at the garage area, so I'm slightly familiar, but to be able to go back out and walk with this drawing, with this plan in hand, would be extremely beneficial to the understanding of the entire scope.
And hopefully the applicant and Mr. Pitcher, you could be there too at the same time. Okay, any other comments on the board? Anybody looking to speak in favor of the application? Let the record show there's no one here to speak in favor of the application. Anybody looking to speak against the application? Please come forward and give us your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Glyn Morgan. I am the resident of 305 Berkeley Drive, which is next door but one to the property we're talking about. I have two concerns, actually. One, as you'll see from the photographs, a lot of this work is underway or being done. So in a sense, the applicant has presented us with a fait accompli. It's my understanding that historical preservation approval must be given prior to the work taking place. That's my concern number one. And I'm concerned about this practice continuing without seeking prior historical preservation board approval. Second is that much of the work is being done by the applicant himself. You'll see in one of the photographs there's something like a dumpster truck, which he drives around with headphones on early in the morning, late at night, and over the weekend. He's has a full-time job, so he can only work on it outside hours. He says that the work will take a number of years, and my concern is whether this will mean that people in the neighborhood will be subjected to excessive noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else looking to speak against the application? If so, come forward and give us your name and address.
Hi, my name is Samantha Herrick. The address is 115 Terrace Road, so we're directly across the street. And my question, a couple of questions. One is similar to Glenn's question, which is that some of this work seems to me already to have been done, or a later phase of things that have already been done. So because we live right across the street, we're aware that a lot of trees have already been removed. Many, many trees have already been removed on the slope between this property and Terrace Road. So I'm curious or concerned as to how many more trees are going to be removed and what that is going to do both to the stability of the land. So I think in the application there was a mention that a recent storm had brought down quite a lot of vegetation into the road, which I think eventually another neighbor cleared. But, and I'm not landscape architect, but my concern is that if a great deal more vegetation is removed, this could destabilize a lot of that dirt and whatever else is up there. Similarly, I'm concerned there was something in the application about additional lighting, exterior lighting, and the application said that he would take care to make sure it didn't spill over onto adjacent properties. However, last fall, he installed new lights on the outside of the house, both on the front and the back, which were visible from a very great distance away. So from SU's campus, you could see these lights that were unbelievably bright. It was like walking toward an airport. And I know that people on Berkeley were having these lights shine right into their houses. So I'm concerned about additional lights that could just make more, and these lights also shine right into my office, across my home office, right across the street, when the leaves are down. And I suppose if there are fewer trees, there will be fewer leaves. So I'm concerned about that. And then just on an aesthetic level, I have a question about the kitchen gazebo, which doesn't, in my amateur sense of things, seem particularly consistent with a property from the 1920s, when I don't think they would have had an outdoor kitchen next to the pool. So that's more of a question. And I can second what Glenn was saying about the noise. It can be very disturbing to be trying to, well, do anything really at home in the evenings or on the weekends when there's this loud machinery being operated for hours and hours on end. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else looking to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Pierre Frison. I live at 115 Terrace Road, Samantha's husband. As somebody who drives every day past the property, I wanted to know who is in charge of the property, or is it still the property, or does it depend on the city where we have the trees, the branches, everything that obviously hasn't been maintained ever? So as somebody who drives there, and the road is fairly narrow, and there is a curve, so it's a real hazard even for traffic. My concern also is of landslides, since the brush being removed is one thing, but how can it affect traffic, and who is in charge of maintaining that particular area? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else looking to speak in opposition to the application? Let the record show that there is no one else looking to speak in opposition. So the applicant now has an opportunity to make a closing comment.
Okay, I'll try to go over everything. Regarding the question of the patio and the pool and the kitchen, basically there are 2 steps from the present patio level down to the pool patio level, and that would be eliminated. So the basement door straight over to the pool would be one single surface. We're leaving those little retaining walls in place, even though the grade is changing. On the question of the retaining wall of the terrace, if we go to photographs, we go to page photographs at 39, 38 through 42. That is the stone, the concrete block wall that's in front of the existing brick wall. So at this point in time, we do not know what the condition of the brick wall is behind and what work would be required. Okay, now, regarding the questions. The slope of the land from the rear yard down to terrace is about 45 degrees. It's a 1-to-1 slope, which is about the maximum of soil repose angle. What we're looking at, what we're proposing at this point is vegetation which will stabilize that ground. It'll be a ground cover. It'll be a vinca or a crown vetch that will, with its spreading roots and with its vegetation, will turn that slope into a green area. Now, the trees closest to the rear yard, we're talking about thinning some of those trees so that we have an angle of sunlight that gets down on that bank so that the plants can grow. But he's very concerned about being able to see the neighbors' houses at the bottom. So any of the trees along terrace are going to be left untouched. And you will maintain that visual screening of the trees between his lawn and the houses on the opposite side of terrace. So he's not intending to open it up. Now, if worse comes to worse, and the arborist says the planting isn't going to work, then the alternative is to install hardscape, which is riprap, with an anti-erosion fabric and stone to keep the soil from moving down. So we're first going to try the vegetation to give it a green slope. And if that doesn't work, the existing slope, I think, looks like the existing slope from the 1920s. I think that was the original excavation and elevations. Now, on
that slope on Terrace, do you know for a fact whether or not the property line goes down to Terrace, or is there a strip of city-owned land? Are you
there
aware
is
one way or the
a
other?
strip of city-owned land. If we go to the drawing where I mentioned the brush along the right-of-way, drawing L2, that's basically the blind curve that's being discussed. And that brush is within the city's right-of-way. That is not on his property. So that is a city maintenance issue. We don't propose for the owner to do anything about that.
Road on this map.
Yep.
That would help us.
Okay.
Yeah, we were going to ask one thing. Could you provide a survey of the entire property? Up-to-date survey?
I think we did.
There is a survey.
Yeah, but the surveyor didn't put in the road edge.
Right, it's just a property location. It does not
Yeah, it's not a,
contain the delineation of Terrace Road.
right.
Yeah, I'm kind of dubious about that because I don't think the property line is marked. So I
Yeah,
don't think I can measure
That
to
was
the
my
roadway.
question.
Now,
Being that that's a north slope, you're gonna need to thin out some of the canopy to get any vegetation to establish.
Correct.
Your best bet would probably be a vinca or some sort to
Yeah, some kind of
some ground cover.
low ground cover.
Green ground plane as you're referring to.
Yeah, we will accept, the arborist's suggestion as to what other plant materials he thinks would work best on that slope.
There's
Now,
about five, there's a few shade ground vegetation,
species,
yeah, that you can look at.
now, regarding the lights, I just made mention of it. I haven't designed any, and I'm not familiar with the existing lights, so we'll have to investigate that. My understanding was that the lights would be the typical ground lights in front of the building, lighting up the facade rather than something shining out on the property, but I don't know that for sure. The gazebo, we're presented with the issue of adaptive reuse, adaptation to current living situations, methods, and standards of a historic property. So the argument on this issue is that this is something that is now current fashion, and being in the rear yard, not visible from the street, we think that that's probably a property owner's discretion as to what he wants to do, but I will provide you with the sketches of the gazebo.
Thank you.
I think that's all I have to respond to.
So we're going to keep the hearing open, which will allow for further comment in the future. We're not going to close the hearing. And hopefully we can get a site visit out there before our next meeting, if that's at all possible. Okay? Just a question.
Thank you. My question is about, is about the vegetation again. And as you were speaking, I was wondering how climate change may be factored into these plans, given that the removal of a large number of trees seems in general like a not, a sort of counterproductive move, given the nature of climate change, which we're already experiencing in the city.
I
And
appreciate
certainly
what
the
you're saying.
replacement by
I don't
hardscape.
think that's within our jurisdiction legally.
All right, thank you.
I would say it is not.
Okay, so,
Just, Mr. Chairman, I would also add that I think that vis-à-vis the comments that a noise generated by a gentleman doing his own work is also not within your jurisdiction. Lights shining as part of the work would not be in your jurisdiction, and judging on the certificate of appropriateness.
that would be for another department in the city. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda, old business. There is no old business. New business, project DNHR 23-01. The application type, it's a demolition of a non-designated historic resource at 222 Delaware Ave, Delaware Street, yeah, it says, yeah, that's right. Thank you. Owner is the Greater Syracuse Land Bank, and demolition of the property identified as National Register eligible. We do have a letter from the SHPO in which I'll read a portion of it. That in their opinion that the project is described, the specific demolition will have an adverse impact on historic resources. However, they have said that they concur that all alternatives to demolition have been evaluated and there are no prudent or feasible alternatives to the demolition. They further do, in the last paragraph, as you can read, speak to the need to do the proper documentation before any demolition takes place. So with that, we're looking for a statement or a vote or a motion?
You want a presentation by, that we do have folks from
Oh.
the land bank here.
Oh, good.
To. Or, sorry, yeah, that's right. Are there, if there are other questions that the board has?
Does anybody on the board have any questions about this?
How long ago was the porch removed?
In March, there was over 16 inches snowfall last March, and the city cited us. The porch began to pull away from the house, and it was considered a danger. They cited us, so we had to get an emergency demolition of the porch
That was removed
last March.
this past March.
Yeah. 20,
It's a shame, but that's what
yeah,
happened.
yeah.
Major character defining, but it still presents many fine East Lake, Queen Anne details on the facade of the building. I am aware that the property parcel is part of a new plan as well along Delaware Street for new
That's right.
infill housing. So this building is slated to come out and a new building would be going up. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, the Spanish Action League is working with Acacia Network, I think the name of their organization is, and they'll be putting, I can,
Actually, because the question is generally limited to whether or not
Right,
this should be
to the
forwarded
demolition.
into.
That would
I
be
did not
something in the
include
future.
this,
Right.
but I do have images of the, if people would like to see.
It's,
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're welcome to.
it's future, but we always see these demolitions, then nothing happens to the site. So I'm always interested in seeing what's proposed, what we lose and what we gain.
so we're going to be putting up 67 units of affordable housing on Delaware Street on this map that you see here. And I've given you the site plans and the, you've got that.
You're fine, yeah, no, I just have a couple copies of it. So.
There's elevations in there of the buildings too. Holmes King Colquist are the architects, and they'll be designing the buildings to incorporate some of the features of the neighborhood, the architectural character of the neighborhood.
Other questions, comments?
HKK is also going to be doing it's going to be hired to do the documentation of the building, and that'll be photographed and sent off to SHPO.
Comments? I understand what my esteemed colleague Jeff is saying. As you drive by the building and look at the original picture, I think a lot of the integrity is gone. And I think the SHPO agrees.
Documentation?
So that it would require a motion that the building
Demolition be
does
allowed
not,
to occur.
does not meet the criteria for designation in its
Anybody
existing
want to make a
form.
motion, one way or the other?
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
And I'll be abstaining from the motion, but I do have the question, just for future reference. In the event of something like this happening in the future, as far as like an emergency demo, is that something that should also come before the board for the possibility of saving useful architectural pieces of some?
We would like to see that happen, but in fact, we've been through this multiple times, and unfortunately, an emergency demolition order is just that.
A home headquarter, or not home, I'm sorry, the land bank, however, you do try to salvage usable architectural features, if I'm
We
not
do. Dave Rowe is here. He's our property manager. Dave, do you know if any of that was salvaged?
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the demolition for 222 Delaware Street.
I guess our motion would
Or
have to be that it does
I'm
not
sorry.
meet the criteria. Yeah.
I apologize.
That's all right.
I make the motion to approve, does not meet designation,
Or that it doesn't meet the criteria
the
for designation.
criteria designation for historic.
No longer.
No, right,
No
no
longer.
longer meets, thank you. That's a good correction.
Do I have a second to that motion?
Sorry.
I know it's hard for all of us.
It is hard. It's
So I've
hard
got a
for us.
motion. It's been forwarded and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye. Abstain.
Opposed? Abstain?
I'm abstaining.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving forward. Other new business. Ship a request for the LPB to comment on the following National Register nominations. There's the Marshall and Son Warehouse at 1 Webster Landing, and then the H.A. Moyer Factory Complex, and that's just a boundary increase. So let's take 1 Webster Landing first. It's an extensive report. I think it was very well done.
Certainly appears to be eligible. Surprised they didn't use the multiple properties listing as part of it.
Right.
That could be a comment back to the
Yeah.
SHPO too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody disagree? If not, I'll look for a motion on that.
Oh, we don't need to,
Just a
I think
comment?
it's for comment, and
Just comment,
I
okay.
will present a report back to, that will come actually from the mayor's office back to
With a
SHPO.
comment from using the multiple properties report.
Yep, yep.
Very good comment.
And the Moyer Factory Complex.
It's been my experience that the SHPO always wants to include every building that part of an industry. So
Absolutely.
And I have to say, I remember being surprised that they had not included this building in the original nomination too. I'm not sure
Right.
how that happened, but yeah.
Was the comment to the affirmative? Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much. And lastly, in your, on the discussion phase, discussion correspondence, there's a letter from Mr. Haley, and I just want to reiterate what was in the staff report, that we have had discussion with Corporation Counsel, and very clearly, the LPB followed its process, starting with the initial denial of the application in question, and then upon the appeal, the agreement with the Planning Commission to see if we could work with the applicant to something that would be acceptable, maybe not the best, but acceptable. And in fact, that's what we did, and a new application was received, and we followed our procedure. And then to the other point in the letter, redos aren't possible. We cannot force an applicant to reapply, and so it's done. It's finished. So that's where we stand. Anything else? If not, I want to again welcome Nicole. You know what you're getting into here. And as we discussed at our training, I know the board knows that my resignation has been pended to the mayor, and in another couple of meetings, I'll be gone. No. And, but I do want to say that, 24 years is a long time. That said, I'll miss it. So, thank you.
Eternally grateful, Don. Thank you for all your service.
My pleasure.
It's been wonderful serving on the board with you as chair.
Thank you.
When is your resignation effective?
It'll be either the last meeting in September or the first in October. Not quite sure yet. It depends on, I've got some responsibilities for further training, and I have to fulfill that. It's a promise I made to the mayor. Okay,
We'll spin it out as long as possible.
I'm sure.
2.5 years ago.
2.5 years.
Yeah, I know, that's amazing.
Well, I first mentioned this to the mayor 2 weeks after he was inaugurated. So that was his first
So
term.
I'm a master spinner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep it up.
Could I entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.